وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا والحقنا بعبادك الصالحين. آمين آمين. Inshallah, today we'll be covering hadith number 5 from the 40 hadith of Imam Al Nawawi. May Allah have mercy on him. بسم الله. عن أم المؤمنين أم عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. رواه البخاري ومسلم. وفي رواية لمسلم: من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Aisha رضي الله عنها, the mother of the believers, Abdullah, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who innovates something in this matter of ours that is not of it will have it rejected. And this hadith was collected by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, meaning it is totally authentic, muttafaqun alayh. And in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, there's a different narration, the words slightly differ. Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad. He who does an act which our matter is not in agreement with will have it rejected. So there's the same hadith in both these books, and inshallah today we are going to cover this hadith. This hadith is very pertinent. It is talking about something which many people misunderstand and many people fall into. Inshallah, we'll begin first with the narrator. The narrator of this hadith is Aisha radiallahu anha. Her name is Aisha bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq al-Taymiyya al-Qurashiyya. Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhuma, from Bani Taym, from Quraysh. Aisha radiallahu anha, her name is Aisha, and her epithet, her kunya is Abdillah. Abdillah is an epithet what people use. So example, they say Abu Huraira, the father of Huraira. Abdillah, the mother of Abdullah. The Arabs speak like this. Ibn so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the father of so-and-so. They use this as what they call a kunya. It's a term of respect given to somebody, whether they have children or not, or whether it is linked to a child or not. Aisha radiallahu anha, she had no children. But she was given this name or this epithet, Abdillah, because of her love for her sister's son, Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Her sister Asma bint Abi Bakr, Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr, she married Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, and they had a son, his name was Abdullah. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to love him a lot, so this name was given to her mother of Zubayr because she used to treat him like her own son. And in the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is said, the auntie, the maternal auntie has the status of the mother. So there is an epithet, and some of them say she miscarried a child from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was named Abdullah, and she miscarried, and that's where it came from. But this is weak. The more popular opinion, what is known and recorded authentically, is that because of her nephew Abdullah. Al-Mu'minin, the mother of the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ahzab, النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم. The messenger or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has more right over the believers than themselves, and his wives are their mothers. So there is what is meant in the hadith on the mother of the faithful or the believers. All the wives of the Prophet are known as the mothers of the believers, and all of them have the status in terms of respect and in terms of hurmah. What is forbidden for us to do with them is forbidden for us to do with our own mothers. We should treat them like this. Now here, I think we need to spend just a minute to ponder over something. I will ask every single one of you here, who can tell me they don't know their mother's name or they've forgotten it? Can anyone tell me they don't know their mother's name or they've forgotten it? I don't think you can find any single person who will tell you, I don't know my mother's name or I have forgotten it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the person who's supposed to be more beloved to us than our own selves, and he takes preference over us, over our own selves. He's saying that his wives are the mothers of the believers, and the bond of Iman is stronger than the bond of blood. The proof for that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hujurat, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Verily the believers are brothers. And Nuh alayhi salam, when the flood came, what did he tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? he told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this son of mine, إِنَّهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ, verily is from my family. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reply to him? قال يا نوح, he said, Allah said, يا نوح, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ, verily he is not from your family. إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ, his actions are not from those who are righteous. So the bond of belief is stronger than the bond of blood. Hence, the mothers of the believers, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ are more our mothers than our own mothers by blood. Now, why I say we need to stop here? Who can name them? How many are they in number? If we claim to love Nabi ﷺ and Muhammad ﷺ and we're reading his words, ya sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then we should know at least the names of his wives, which are our mothers, which are stronger in bonds to us in terms of faith than in blood. Who are they? Can anybody name them? If you can't name them, it means that you really know something. How much do you know about them, even if you can't name them? Inshallah, I'll list them for you, just so that everybody knows who they are and they can refer back to it in the future. Khadija bint Khuwaylid radiyallahu anha. Sauda bint Zam'a radiyallahu anha, the wives of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Aisha bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anha. Hafsa bint Umar radiyallahu anhuma. 4 so far. We said there are 11. Zainab bintu Jahshin radiyallahu anha. Zainab bintu Huzaima radiyallahu anha. Juwayriya bintu al-Harith radiyallahu anha. Safiya bintu Huyay radiyallahu anha. Salama radiyallahu anha. Habiba radiyallahu anha. And the last, Maymuna bintul Harith radiyallahu anha. 11 wives of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you know their names? Learn their names. If that is the least you can do. If you don't want to read into their biographies and learn about them, your own mothers, the least we can do is just know their names. That is the least that we can do. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her. She was born in Makkah al-Mukarramah and he married her 3 years before Hijrah to al-Madinah, and the marriage was consummated in the 2nd year after Hijrah, in the year 2 AH in Shawwal, after the Battle of Badr, which is the greatest battle of Islam. And Aisha radiallahu anha, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he passed away, he was 63 and she was 18 years old, and she lived after that more than 40 years. It is said that she passed away also at the age of 63 in the year 57 Hijrah in Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu is the one who read the Janazah Salah over her, and she is buried in Baqi al-Gharqad, in the graveyard of Al-Madinah next to Masjid al-Nabawi today. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrated 1,210 ahadith from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she is from Al-Mukthirun al-Sab'a, the 7 who narrated the most. And she used to give fatwa. And she is the most knowledgeable woman on the face of the earth ever. There's no woman who came before or no woman who will come after that knows more than her in Islam. No woman ever. She is the most knowledgeable woman on the face of the earth to ever live, and that will ever live when it comes to Islam. There is no woman more knowledgeable than her. And her ahadith, compared to all the other women who narrated, ahadith from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam or his wives, they don't even reach a quarter of this. For example, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife Salama, she also narrated a lot of ahadith from him. Only 300. Aisha 1,210 ahadith. Aisha radiallahu anha, from her fada'il, from her status, there are many ahadith mentioned. We mentioned a few, so we know who we are dealing with. She is one of the greatest personalities of Islam. Forget women of Islam, and our mother. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, Man ahabbun nas, the most beloved person to you, O Messenger of Allah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Aisha. Aisha is the most beloved person to me. So he said, وَمِنَ الرِّجَالِ, and from the men, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Abuha, her father, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So there is from the status of Aisha radiallahu anhu. From her status as well, is that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away and his head was laying on her chest. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried in her house. There is from her status as well. From her status as well is that she asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who will be your wives in paradise? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, Amma annaki faminhunna. Amma annaki faminhunna. As for them, as for you, then you are from them. And from a status that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw in a dream 3 nights in a row, an angel who came to him and he saw and he lifted a garment, and then he saw Aisha radiallahu anha for 3 nights, and then the angel told him, she's your wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected her to be the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that is from a status as well. From a status is that Jibreel alayhi salam would greet her. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in a narration which was authentic, said, Ya Aish, there is a pet name he gave, Aish, without saying Aisha. Hada Jibreel yuqri'uka as-salam. There is Jibreel, he is greeting you. So Aisha radiallahu anha replied, Wa alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. And Aisha radiallahu anha is the only virgin woman that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam married. Salama, one of the wives of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or his wives, once they were complaining about Aisha radiallahu anha, so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, he said Salama, he told his wife Salama, Ya Salama, La tu'dhini fi Aisha. Do not trouble me or worry me about Aisha. Do not complain about her. فإنه والله ما نزل علي الوحي وأنا في لحاف امرأة منكن غيرها. He says, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, by Allah, revelation has not come down upon me when I am in the bedding of any one of my wives except her. Any one of you, revelation has not come down to me except when I am with Aisha in her bedding. And like we said, Jibreel also gave her salam. That is when revelation is coming down. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told Fatima radiallahu anha once, Alasti tuhibbina ma uhib? Do you not love what I love? She said, Bala, of course, Messenger of Allah. He said, فَأَحِبِّ هَذِهِ, then love this one, meaning Aisha radiallahu anha. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, فَضْلُ عَائِشَةَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ كَفَضْلِ الثَّرِيدِ عَلَى الطَّعَامِ. The status of Aisha upon women is like the status of tharid upon the rest of the food. Tharid is a type of dish that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam liked. So he was trying to say that Aisha, if you have a table spread and there's things that you like on the table spread and things that you don't like, and there's something that you really like, you really enjoy it, what will you choose? You first go for what you enjoy, fill your stomach, and then you taste the other stuff. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is talking about Aisha in this aspect. All women in the characteristics of ilm, knowledge and perfection. All women are like the rest of the food. Aisha is perfect actually. That is what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said about her, and she was the most beloved of all people to him. And she is as-siddiqah bintu siddiq. She is the truthful one, the daughter of the truthful one. Al-mutahhara, the one who has been purified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the battles, she was accused of committing adultery with Safwan ibn Mu'attal. And the hypocrites spread a rumor. And then there is what they spread. And the Shia till today, they say this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed ayat from the 7 heavens, which will be recited up until the day of Qiyamah, purifying her. In Surah Nur, ayah number 11 to 20. There is Aisha radiallahu anha, the mother of the believers. She narrates this hadith from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The hadith is, Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fawarad. Whoever innovates something in this matter of ours that is not of it will have it rejected. This hadith has 2 parts. To innovate, in Arabic they call it bid'ah. Bid'ah means to innovate, to bring something new. To innovate something new which is not part of the religion, it is rejected. That is why Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and it is not part of this religion. Meaning there are things which are in this religion which can be innovated, which are part of the religion, which can be renewed. Those things are okay. And there is what you call a sunnah al-mahjura, the sunnah which is forgotten. So there's 2 parts here. Please remember them. And we'll go into the details, inshallah. The first is bid'ah, innovation, which is looked down upon, which is not found in the Quran and the sunnah, and has no root in the religion. That is what you call bid'ah. And the next part is that which has been forgotten, which has a root in the religion. That is what is sunnah mahjura, the sunnah which is left or has been forgotten, or what they call bid'ah hasana, innovation which is good. It is originally from the religion. It is not something new. Inshallah, I'll discuss it towards the end. This hadith here, what he said about it, Imam Ahmad said that the religion pivots on 3 hadith. The hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu, the first one in this book, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, and the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, مَنْ أَحْدَثَ فِي أَمْرِنَا مَا لَيْسَ مِنْهُ فَوَرَدْ, مَنْ أَحْدَثَ فِي أَمْرِنَا هَذَا مَا لَيْسَ مِنْهُ فَوَرَدْ. This hadith, and the next hadith is the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir, which we'll come to in this book. And the hadith of Umar and the hadith of Aisha, they speak about 2 things. The hadith of Umar speaks about إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, verily actions are by the intentions. It is speaking about the interior, the heart. The intentions are in the heart. This hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu, the first hadith in this book, speaks about the actions which are inside, what is in the heart, the action of the heart, the interior. And the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha speaks about the outside, the actions of the outside which you may innovate, which you may come about with. So these two ahadith are like a scale. You measure everything on the scale here. What is inside, you measure it on your intentions, it is done for Allah. And what is done for Allah from the outside, if it is not from what has come in the Sharia, from the Quran and Sunnah, it is rejected. Again, the hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu speaks about the inside, the intention. Your intention, if you do an action, if it is not done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with intent, it is rejected. If it is done with the intent for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is accepted. There is the interior, the heart, actions of the heart. And the physical action, if it is an action which is done, which is in the Sharia, legislated, mentioned in the Quran or the Sunnah, or has a principle or asl, a root back to the Quran and Sunnah, it is accepted. If not, it is rejected. So these two ahadith are extremely seminal and important in terms of the Sharia. This hadith here is speaking about bid'ah, innovation. Before we even go into the details of it, what's meant by it, and you'll all know what's meant by it, what's meant by it in detail, the rules, what should be understood, the boundaries, all of these things, inshallah, we'll mention a few words of the early generation of this ummah which spoke about bid'ah. Abu Dawud, one of the collectors of the books of the Sunan, he said, كل فعل لم يفعله الصحابة فلا تفعلوه. Every action which was not done by the Sahaba, do not do it. If you find an action you think is a good action, look, did the Sahaba do it? They didn't do it, don't do it. Do what they did, because if there was goodness in it, they would have done it. لو كان فيها خيرا لسبقونا إليه. If there was goodness in this action, they would have preceded us in doing it. Now, that's another saying also of the Salaf. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu says, ورحمه, he said, من سن في الإسلام سنة وزعم أنها حسنة. Whoever establishes a tradition in this religion, meaning they do a new action and they say they're getting reward for it, and then they claim this action is a good action, فقد زعم, he has claimed now that أن محمدا قد خان الرسالة, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was treacherous in the risala, in the message that he was to give to us. He didn't deliver it in totality. Somebody may come about and say, but there's a hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, من سن في الإسلام سنة حسنة, whoever establishes a sunnah in this religion which is good. And Imam Malik is saying, you establish a sunnah and then you claim which is good. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying you establish a sunnah which is good, Imam Malik says, if you say that, then you are claiming that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been treacherous in his message. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you establish the sunnah in this religion and it is good, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't say you claim it is good. He said, and it is good, كان له أجرها وأجر من عمل بها. Then for him is the reward of it and the reward of the one who acts on it. What's meant by this hadith? Because it's contradictory to the statement of Imam Malik. What's meant is whoever renews a sunnah of this religion, meaning something is in this religion and you renew it. I'll give you an example. When you do madmada and istinshaq for wudu, taking water in the palm, and madmada is gargling and istinshaq is putting it into the nose and cleaning the nose. Most people today, what do? They take this water and they do madmada. They gargle and then they take another handful and they clean the nose. I'm sure most of us do it that way. The sunnah is what? To take one handful and to take part of it in the mouth and the remainder of it, put it into the nose to clean the nose. There is a sunnah. There is what is meant by whoever sunnah fil Islam establishes a sunnah which is already there, which is a good sunnah, meaning Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it or it is ordered in the Quran. And not whoever comes with a new innovation and then claims it is part of Islam. Because anything which is part of Islam needs a root to go back to it. So that's what Imam Malik said. And whoever claims something that it is a sunnah or it is good in Islam, it is claiming that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was treacherous. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever lies upon me intentionally, then let him book his place in the fire. You find people today, they say, if you read surah thus so many times on the night of Ramadan, then you'll get Jannah. Where is that in the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There is something which is innovative, they come with it. And then they pass it around in the messages. And then some of them go further, they book their place in the fire. It's not only a bid'ah now they're doing. They say Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So please differentiate. Doing an action on your own and claiming it's good is one thing, it is bid'ah. Doing an action and claiming Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it, here you are claiming Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said something and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said if you do that, then book your place in the fire if I didn't say it. Right. Let's go into detail about what is bid'ah and what is not bid'ah. Bid'ah, the opposite of it is sunnah. Now, this is in terms of aqidah, in terms of creed. Sunnah, sometimes the opposite of is makruh. This is in terms of jurisprudence, fiqh. Why I'm saying this? Sunnah and bid'ah and fard and wajib and all these words, depending on the science you are looking at, linguistically also, depending on what you look at, the definition will differ. You will have heard me say before, for example, the word sawm means in Arabic, sukut, keeping quiet, means linguistically. In Sharia, it means, for example, to begin your fast at dawn and break it at dusk and stay away from what has been prohibited. So in Sharia also, there are different sciences. There's fiqh, there's aqidah. Aqidah means your belief, your creed. Your fiqh means your actions, your jurisprudence, your daily action, what you do, your ibadah. And there are different sciences. So in terms of fiqh, sunnah, the opposite of it is karaha. It is what is makruh. We say something is sunnah, something is makruh. Example of this. For example, it's sunnah to begin doing actions with your right hand. Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam kana yu'jibu at-tayammum. Aisha radiallahu anha said in the hadith, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to like beginning with his right hand, with the right. يعجبه التيمم في تنعله وترجله وفي شأنه كله. He used to like doing things beginning with his right, in combing his hair, in putting on his shoes, he began with the right. So there is sunnah. The opposite of is makruh. For example, the sunnah of fajr. It's sunnah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never left this. It's not wajib, it's not compulsory. He never left the two sunnah of fajr ever. So if you leave it, you are leaving the sunnah, means now you are doing a makruh act. Do you all understand? That is in fiqh. We are not talking of this type of sunnah. When we're talking about sunnah, we mean the actions which are legislated by Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And what is not legislated is bid'ah. It is an innovation. That is what we are talking about now when I say the word sunnah. So please understand very carefully now when I say the word sunnah. I'm not meaning something that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, and if you do it, you get reward. If you don't do it, you don't get punished, or you don't get, there's no reward for you. It's fine. Or makruh. If you do it, it's makruh. It's just like if you don't do it, you get rewarded. If you do it, you don't get punished. I'm not talking about that. We are talking about sunnah and bid'ah. What is legislated in the sunnah, meaning in the sharia, what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam legislated, and what is not legislated, what is innovated. Is that clear? Inshallah, I hope that's clear. Right. So now when we're speaking about this, the legislation was when? It was in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The legislation came. After Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed away, there's nothing new that can come. Malik rahimahullah, Imam Malik said, لا يصلح آخر هذه الأمة إلا ما أصلح أولها. Nothing will correct the end of this ummah except which corrected the beginning of it. The beginning of this ummah, the Salaf meaning the predecessors, the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the Atba' Tabi'een. Salaf means predecessor. What did they do? What corrected them? What made sure that they stayed upon the right path is that they stuck to what was in the Quran and what was in the Sunnah. They didn't deviate. On the understanding of those who understood, on the ulama, Abu Hanifa, Shafi, Malik, on their understanding, Imam Ahmad and hundreds of them, on their understanding, not on somebody's understanding 1400 years later. You'll understand again. What will correct us is to be on the way of those who preceded us on their understanding, on the early generation's understanding, and not those who came later on. Please understand that. All right. All right. What is bid'ah? Bid'ah, it is tariqa fi din. There is a definition of Imam al-Shatibi. It is a way, a method that you take, a methodology that is brought into the religion, mukhtara'a, made up, meaning it didn't come before. People made it up. Tudahi al-sharia, it emulates or it is similar to actions which are in the religion. يقصد بها المبالغة في التعبد, and what is meant by that is actually a person is trying to worship through these actions. That is what bid'ah is. I'll give you a quick example to make it clear. Somebody comes and like we said, they say at the beginning of Ramadan, if you read Surah Fath 100 times on that night, for you is Jannah. I saw this message going around. Firstly, there's no way in the Sharia that it says that. Right. Secondly, it emulates the action of the Sharia, because from the Sharia is reading Quran. Ramadan is a time when you read Quran. It emulates it, but it's not from the Sharia that if you do this so many times by number or time, or if you read the specific surah, that there is going to be the outcome. So it emulates it. And the last thing, what is the intention of the person who's doing it? They want to do ta'abbud, worship. That is what you call bid'ah. And this bid'ah leads to the fire. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, كل محدثة بدعة. Every new action is an innovation. وكل بدعة ضلالة, and every innovation is a misguidance. وكل ضلالة في النار, and every misguidance is in the fire. So that is what is meant by bid'ah. Right. Now people get confused sometimes. They tell us, well, you're saying now every action that's done in the Sharia we can't do. You're driving a car, you're wearing a watch. There's bid'ah. Bid'ah. There's bid'ah in terms of language. It is an innovation in the worldly sense. It is not an innovation in religion. There is the definition. It must be with these three aspects. We said it must be something innovated in the religion. It must be something which emulates or is similar to the actions of the religion. And it must be something which you intend by it worship. Hence, we need to separate between the two types of actions, ibadat and mu'amalat. Ibadat and mu'amalat or adat. What do I mean by this? Actions, ibadat means worship. Ibadat means worship. We have to separate when we look at worship and customary actions or actions which are done on a day-to-day basis to have mu'amalat. Ibadat are your worship, actions of worship. They consist of three parts. That which the Sharia has come and he has ordered it. For example, you have to read salah. Right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Aqimus salah, establish the prayer. That is from the ibadat, your actions of worship. You have to establish it, there's an order. Or what else the Sharia comes with? Prohibiting it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited you from drinking alcohol. In the Quran it comes, right? And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said, you are prohibited. That is from your ibadat to leave it. Your actions of worship is to leave this one side. What comes in between that which is not mentioned? What should you do with it? The principle of ibadat, of actions of worship, is that you leave them, mana. You do not carry them out. So unless something is ordered or prohibited, you do it or you don't do it. Anything else which is to do with the ibadat, with the actions of worship, if it is not mentioned, you leave it out. So for example, is it mentioned that you can read 50 rakats for Maghrib? It's not mentioned. 3 rakats is mentioned, 50 rakats is not mentioned. Or for Aisha, you do this. It is not mentioned, meaning, can you say now, I'm doing an act of worship. Salah is an act of worship, so I'm adding it on. It's an act of worship. The acts of worship must be legislated either by command or by prohibition. Anything else, there's mana, meaning that you leave it out. You can't do it. When it comes to adat and mu'amalat, the other side of the coin, adat means your customary actions or your actions on a day-to-day basis. The origins of them means they are allowed unless something comes to prohibit them. I'll give you an example. For example, we speak about clothing, right? Let's say clothing. You are allowed to wear all types of clothing unless something comes to prohibit a certain type of clothing. For example, men are prohibited from wearing silk. So clothing is a general action. Everybody is going to wear clothing. You're going to wear the clothing of your people. It's a customary action. Now, you say, I can wear all types of clothing because it is an action is done. You don't actually, it is not an ibadah. It is not something you worship with directly. So this action here, it is what you call a ada or mu'amala. You do it and you wear your clothing. Now, you can wear all clothing. It's not an act of worship. It doesn't matter whether you wear green or pink or whatever it is, whether you're wearing a kurta or a shirt or pants or whatever it is, it's fine. But as soon as that action goes against what is coming in the Sharia, it becomes haram for the specific type. Meaning everything is allowed unless there is a specific law that prohibits it. So silk, men can't wear silk, you can't wear silk. Men can't wear gold, you can't wear gold. So you'll understand it. I'll give you more examples to make it clear, inshallah. Let's look at it like this. Adat are customs. Let's take a custom. For example, man gets married to a woman. From the Sharia, what is from ibadat is to pay the mehr, is to pay the dowry. You pay the dowry. From custom is that you pay 1 kruger. This custom here, are you taking it as being something of part of the religion or not? You're not taking it. Why? So it's customary to do it. It's not a bid'ah. Why? You say, I'm paying 1 kruger. Nobody is going to think that because I gave 1 kruger specifically, I'm getting a reward for 1 kruger. Whether you gave the 1 ounce of gold as a kruger, whether you gave it as cash, 37,000 rands, whether you gave it in jewelry, nobody worries as long as you looking at the action which you are getting reward for is the mehr itself. That's what you're following the Sharia. The customary action, you're not looking at it at all. It's a custom that has become general that people are doing. Another example, somebody wears a shirt and a pants. No problem. The way of the people is they wear shirt and pants. There is no reward for wearing a shirt and a pants because it's a customary action. You're not looking at it that I'm dressing like this because I want to get reward. Or I'm wearing something because I want to get reward. It's a customary action. You all understand that? The same thing goes to, for example, customary actions when it comes to the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Everybody thinks everything Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did is sunnah. Everything he did is not sunnah. You don't get reward for everything. An example of that. Nabi Sallallahu passed away, married at the age of 25. Does it mean now it's sunnah you get rewarded for marrying at the age of 25? No. What is sunnah is what Nabi Sallallahu asked you to do, or he liked doing it and it's part of the religion. Another example, Nabi Sallallahu there's personal preference of his now. He liked eating from the shoulder bone of a sheep. Does it mean that now if you eat from the shoulder bone of the sheep, it's sunnah to do that? It doesn't mean that. Nabi Sallallahu, for example, he had long hair. You bald. It means now you can never follow that sunnah. There is not sunnah. There is the way of the people is to have long hair. Somebody will come and tell you, well, the beard was the way of the Arabs. All had beards. Here you tell them no. Nabi Sallallahu kept the beard, but he said in a hadith, A'fu al-liha, grow your beard. So here there's a command for it, means that now it falls into sunnah, something legislated and not just customary. I told you when I'm saying sunnah now, I don't mean some action that if you leave it, you don't get a reward, but if you do it, you get a reward. I'm talking of legislated and not legislated. You will understand. When does a customary action become haram? Not bid'ah. When does it become haram? When one of three things happen. Either there is a proof in the Quran or in the Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the ahadith, that make it haram. For example, clothing is a customary action. It doesn't link to Sharia. Your car is a thing that you have. It's a worldly thing. It's a worldly means. It's a worldly innovation. Your watch that you're wearing. As soon as something comes to make it haram, you can't use it. For example, like we said, wearing silk clothing. It came that you're wearing silk clothing and now you can't wear it. Why? Because you can wear all types of clothing except the specific one for men. That's the first way. The second way it can become haram if there's a tashabbuh bil kuffar, meaning if it is similar to the actions of the disbelievers in their religion. An example of this would be, we get married, we mentioned that the Kruger is paid. That's part of the Sharia that you pay mer, and we took it as a customary action to pay one Kruger as one gold coin. Right? That's a mer. That's a customary action. We don't see the actual worship in the gold coin. We see the actual worship in the paying of the mer, regardless of whether it's paid with a gold coin or jewelry or cash or otherwise. But now we have a different customary action. This customary action is that, let's say they throw potpourri. It's okay. It's a customary action. It's not linked to anything. You come to the house and they break a coconut at the girl's feet. I know some of the Indians do this. It's one of our actions. And then they say that this action must be done before she enters out because it wards of this and that. That's a Hindu action linked to their religion. Now you are being similar to them. It's no more customary. It is part of a different belief system. It becomes haram to do it. Here's what you call, Nabi Sallallahu said, Man tashabba biqawmin fahuwa minhum. Whoever does a similar action of a people, and he is from them. But a pants and a shirt, for example, Muslims wait, non-Muslims wait. The non-Muslims don't wait in terms of their religion. It's what people wear in a certain country. You go to another country, they wear long clothing. You go to another country, they're wearing a different type of clothing. That is what you call custom purely. And the third thing that makes customary actions haram, if there's a tashabbuh bin nisa or rijal. If you wear clothing which is meant for women and women wear it and it is known in that place that women wear it, then you are doing an action of a woman, or vice versa. If men are known to wear that and now a woman does that action of that clothing, then it becomes haram to do that because you are not supposed to imitate the opposite sex. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cursed al-mustarjala, the woman who carries on like a man, who does the actions of a man, and vice versa. So I hope that's clear. So there's two categories again. Ibadat, your acts of worship. You are not allowed to do anything in acts of worship unless it comes a command from Allah or a prohibition from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger. That's why there are acts of worship. You can't just add and take as you want. When it comes to customs and mu'amalat, you do as you want unless there is a prohibition. Right? So please differentiate. So when somebody comes and tells you where everything for you is bid'ah, no. The sky has nothing to do with religion. This watch I'm wearing has nothing to do with religion. These clothes I'm wearing have nothing to do with religion. They are worldly, or they are customary, or they are mu'amala, day-to-day uses. There's nothing to do with religion. Right? I hope that's clear. I think this lesson might take a bit longer, but inshallah we will understand, and I want to cover it properly so that there is no misunderstanding in anybody's mind. Right? Let's go to bid'ah now. We said bid'ah is an action, method, a methodology in the religion, an action in the religion, which is made up by people. There's no root in it in Sharia, and it emulates the action of Sharia, and you define by it an action of worship, meaning you want by it reward. All right. For this to be bid'ah, there must be three things. For this action to be bid'ah, three things must occur. The first, this action here must be done with iltizam, meaning it must be something continuous. All right. The second, it must be something which is made up. It wasn't there before. And the third, it must emulate something which is in the Sharia. I'll give you an example. All right. For example, you came back from travel today and you read 2 rakat salah. You entered your house and you read 2 rakat salah. Every time you come to your house, you read 2 rakat salah. All right. That day you did it. Sometimes you come home, you read 2 rakat salah. All right. This action here, is it known that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, every time he came to the house, he read 2 rakat salah? No, it's not known. So it's made up. It's by people. All right. The second thing, tudahiya shar, it emulates one of the actions of Sharia, yes, salah, something which is legislated. Are you doing it continuously? No. You did it once or twice, or you are there, you came, you felt like reading 2 rakat salah, you read it. It's not bid'ah. When does it become bid'ah? You tell yourself, every time I'm going to enter my house, I'm going to do it. So now it's an action of Sharia. It emulates one of those actions, or is similar, imitates it, salah. It is done out of your own mind. There's nothing that says that you must do this in the Sharia. And now you do it all the time. Iltizam. All the time you do it. All the time. You enter your house, you read 2 rakats. Every single time you enter your house, and you make it something you compel yourself to do. Now it becomes the action of bid'ah. Do you all understand? So these 3 things must be there. And there is very, very important to understand, or it is a difference between bid'ah and something which is not bid'ah. Iltizam specifically. Something which is done continuously. You done it once here and there and there for a certain reason, but now you specify that you must do it, it becomes bid'ah. Right. So that is the 3 that must come about. Now there's a confusion here also sometimes with people. They say, then what's the difference between an innovation and an action of evil? Because now we're doing an action of goodness and maybe you do an action of evil. What's the difference between them? Very, very, very simple. A bid'ah is any action where you intend worship by it. It is an action of aqeedah, of the mind. You believe that you are doing worship by it. Ma'asiyah, or action of evil or sinning, is an action which comes out from desire to do something, adultery, drinking alcohol, but you yourself know you are doing sin. There is a difference between the two. That is why bid'ah is more dangerous than sinning any other sin, because you yourself don't know you're falling into it. Right. These are what you call the shurut, those 3 that we spoke about. Iltizam, continuity, tudahiya shar', it must be something which is similar or emulates the Sharia. That's what they call al-mudaha bil-shar', and it must be mukhtara, something made up doesn't have an origin in the Sharia. All right. Now there's other categories here. So those make something bid'ah. What takes something out of being, we said that it must have an origin in Sharia. What takes something out of having an origin in Sharia and then removes it from the Sharia? What actions do this? There are 6 things that remove something from the Sharia. They meaning that it can be looked at. Remember, we're talking here about actions which are looked at as similar to the actions of Sharia, but can be removed, meaning they become bid'ah now. What are these 6 things that help us understand it? Inshallah, I'll mention them and I'll give an example for each. The first thing is that all Sharia, when it's revealed, there's reasons for it, there's times, there's places, there's amounts, everything. Salah, for example, let's take Salah. Salah, there's a reason for Salah. It's a compulsion upon us. There's a type of Salah. You have Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, you have Nafil, you have Sunnah, you have all those types of Salah. Right. There is amount. Yes, you know, Dhuhr is 4 rakats, Fajr is 2 rakats, whatever it may be. Is there a method? Yes, you know, there's a methodology. You have to do ruku first, then sujood, then you come up. Is there a time? Yes, Salah is fixed times. Is there a place? Yes. You can't read Salah, for example, in a place which is dirty. You can read everywhere else. Right. So I gave an example of one action, Salah. As soon as it comes out, you remove it from this, and then you see it as an act of worship. Now it becomes bid'ah. Let's do it one by one. Let's take sabab, reason. For example, a reason, something comes out of the Sharia, is removed from being part of the Sharia. Like we said, 2 rakat Salah you can read when you enter the house, isn't it? As soon as you make it, you put all those conditions upon yourself. You do it all the time. It's similar to the Sharia, and it's something you made up. I'm going to do it every time I enter my house. What happens? It comes out. It's no more Sharia, because you took it as a sunnah for yourself. Right. The type, al-jins, type. We spoke about type. For example, you know that slaughtering an animal is from the sunnah. You do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. Now you tell yourself, I'm going to slaughter a horse because it's more expensive, and I'm going to slaughter for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm going to slaughter a horse. That comes out of the Sharia. Why? Because the types of animals you are allowed are a certain number. You can't slaughter a horse. It's not from animals which are allowed to slaughter. Do you understand? So now this falls out of the Sharia. Right. The next one you spoke about is qadr, amount. You say, Dhuhr is 4 rakats. I want more sawab when you read 10 rakats. Stipulated is 4 rakats. You come out of it, you fall out of the Sharia. So there is amount. And you say, because I'm reading more, I'm going to get more sawab. Remember, all of it is with intent to do goodness, but it falls out of the Sharia. All right. The next one is the method. You tell yourself, you know what? I love to do sajda so much. I'm closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in sajda than I am in ruku. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَهُوَ سَاجِدٌ. The closest a servant can be to his Lord is when he is doing sajda. So I'm not going to do ruku anymore. I'm going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the place that I'm closest to him. So instead of making ruku, I'm going to go make sajda immediately, and then I'm going to make the other sajdas after. The method also, if you do that in salah, it's not accepted. It's out of the question. The next one is the time. For example, you say, I want to do Hajj. You go do Hajj out of the time of Hajj. There is a stipulation of time. You have to do it in that time. There is a stipulation of when you read salah. You have to do it in that time. You do an action, for example, in awqat al-nahi, times where salah is prohibited. When the sun is at its zenith, for example, and you say, no, I want to do good actions, so I'm going to read salah at this time. Your intent is to do actions, but you do it at the time where the Sharia prohibited. All these things takes it that action from being mashru' means legislated to being something which is not legislated. And the last one is place. For example, and that is very, very important for us to understand. An action is legislated in a certain place. Like Hajj has its place. You have to do it in Mecca at the different stages or places, Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah. You have to do it there. You can't do Hajj somewhere else. The same thing. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, for example, in a hadith, that لا تشد الرحال إلا لثلاثة مساجد. Do not take upon journey on yourself except to 3 masajid. And he mentioned Al-Masjid al-Haram his Masjid al-Masjid al-Nabawi and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. What do people do? Now they take it upon themselves as an act of worship to go visit a grave. And they think they're getting rewarded for visiting that grave, for example. Or they take it upon themselves now to do an act of worship. They go visit a grave, and then they at the grave they do certain acts of worship. They want to pray salah at the grave for barakah. This is going up against the way that Islam has legislated salah and traveling for ibadat. You're going against it. So now you go visit a grave because you think you're getting reward for visiting that specific grave. That person in that grave doesn't even know his own outcome. Only person we are guaranteed we know the outcome is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the ones he bore witness for, the Sahaba. Other than that, nobody else we know the station. So that person can't help themselves, let alone are they going to help you. But you go and you visit the grave at that place. You go do an act of worship at a place where there's no reward for you. The Sharia didn't come and say, if you go visit this grave, you're getting sawab. And if you do this at this place, there's so much barakah. There's nothing in it, meaning it now comes from being legislated, something mashru', an act of visiting a masjid, Masjid al-Nabawi, Masjid al-Haram, or Masjid al-Aqsa. You go visit a grave, which is something not legislated, and you take barakah, which is not a place of barakah. We know barakah is in other things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the Quran as barakah. Many other things have barakah. You go and you say, I want to take barakah from this deceased person in the grave. All of this is not legislated. The place was not legislated. The action is not legislated. All of these actions, they take you out from being legislated to not legislated. It's not part of the Sharia. It is bid'ah. I hope that's clear. So there is a classification. 3 things need to happen for something to be called bid'ah if they are legislated. Meaning, you must take it as something you made up. I want to read 2 rakats every time I enter my house. There's nothing like that in the Sunnah. Every time you enter your house, you read 2 rakats. Then you do it continuously. And the third thing is that it is similar to the actions of the Sharia. There's 2 rakats to be read, for example, when you enter the masjid. Salah is a part of Sharia. What takes you out of the Sharia, from being legislated to not legislated, are 6 things. The 6 things are the reason that you do it, the type of action that you're doing, the amount that you're doing, the method that you do it in, the time that you do it, and the place. If any of these 6 actions, which are part of Sharia, are done negating one of these 6 things or 6 aspects, then it's not from Sharia again. Again, I'll repeat an example of that. You do salah, for example, you pray salah. Salatul Dhuhr is 4 rakats. It is legislated, it is part of Sharia. The method of the salah is known. The amount is known. The time is known. You go and you read Dhuhr salah in the middle of the night. The time is wrong. It is not legislated for you to do it. It is bid'ah to do it. The amount of raka'at is 4. You go and read 6 raka'at. You want more reward. All this is done because you want reward. It is not legislated. It is bid'ah. The method is known. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni yusalli. Pray as you have seen me praying. You go and you do ruku first and sajda. You want to do sajda because it's better. It's not legislated, it's bid'ah. Right. I hope that's clear for everybody. So there is the distinctions that we have. I'm going to give a few examples of certain actions which have aspects of bid'ah and aspects of sharia, and half of it is accepted and half is not, and otherwise. Let's take a few examples. The first is to draw closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an action which is not part of sharia originally. So we know the way that you draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adhkar, remembrance of Allah, recitation of Quran, extra salawat, all these actions which are mentioned in the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in the Quran. You go now and you say, but I listen to this music and this person is singing about Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah and his musical instruments, and that brings me closer to Allah. You go for some of the dhikr things and people are dancing around and hopping like bunnies and you say, no, this brings me closer to Allah. That is not part of the sharia, nor is it something legislated originally. That is bid'ah to begin with and haram without even coming into bid'ah. It's haram to begin with. That's the first thing. So this is no half-half here. Not something that was in the sharia originally. You want to do an action of sharia to come closer to Allah using actions which are not even part of the sharia originally. That's the first thing. First example. The second example, for example, is to try to gain closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with an action of sharia, but in its incorrect manner. For example, and that is from the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a man once standing in the sun. And this was when he was giving his Jumu'ah khutbah. And he asked, why did he do it? Why is he standing in the sun and not sitting? We know at Jumu'ah khutbah, everybody sits and you look for a place of shade. So they told him, Ya Rasulullah, he has done nadhr. Nadhr means to take an oath upon himself that he will not sit and he will not take shade. He will stand in the sun out of respect for you because you are standing and giving khutbah. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, tell him to sit and tell him to sit in the shade and tell him to take shade. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered that. Now us, what we do a similar action to this. We want to gain closeness with an action that is part of the sharia in certain actions, but we want to do it all the time. Part of sharia, for example, is standing in salah. You have to stand in salah, isn't it? Part of sharia is that if you're going and you're doing hajj and there's certain actions that must be done in the daytime. When the sun is hitting you and pelting you and you're burning there in the sun, it's known that you're going to get rewarded for that. But what we do today is similar to this man. Every time somebody mentions the name of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we want to stand up and do darud. We say salah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we must stand up and do it out of respect. There's nothing in the sharia that says you have to do it like that. Secondly, somebody who doesn't do it doesn't necessarily mean they're disrespecting Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thirdly, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah, he orders this man to sit down. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is there in front of him in his being, not in his absence. And lastly, every day you read salah sitting down. And then you say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. While you're sitting, why don't you stand in salah? And people are going to start doing that. They're going to start standing when they read salah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So people do this action here. They legislated that you must stand. There is an action of bid'ah. Why? Because it is not legislated. Firstly, you're standing and you're saying that you must stand when you do an action. We know that reading salah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an action which is legislated. Standing is not legislated. As soon as you make it compulsory, and it's done all the time, meaning muhtara, from you it became compulsion on people. You compel people to stand. It must be done all the time. Right? And then it is similar to the actions of religion. You stand when you do salah, for example. Now what happens? This becomes bid'ah. So even though you think you're doing a good action, you're doing an action of innovation against the teachings of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just like in this hadith, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, tell him to sit and look for shade and let him cover shade. So please understand this very, very carefully, that there are actions that may be taken or done in a certain aspect which are allowed, but in other aspects they are not allowed. There's nothing that says when you read salah on Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you must stand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when you remember him, Allah, the one who created us, الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing and sitting on their sides. So please, sometimes it's just a little intellect also that makes us understand. We don't need to go into intricacies. So please, everyone take note very, very carefully of what you do. The best is to stick to what is simple. To stick to what is simple and not to get into debate. Somebody can come and debate, well, this and that, and they're going to come with big, big debates, and they're very good at debating. Sharia is not taken from debates. When you look at a debate, you should never take out the outcome from a debate. So please understand this and be careful, because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in the hadith, this leads to the fire. It leads to the fire. Let's give an example of an action which is legislated in Sharia, but it is forbidden, and then you do it. For example, you fast. Fasting is legislated, but you fast on the day of Eid. This is not legislated to fast on the day of Eid. It is an innovation. It should be thrown out. It's not something accepted. Salah is accepted. You read Salah at a time when it is not accepted, at sunset or when the sun is at its zenith, or at sunrise, when the sun is rising. Not legislated. What about actions which are legislated and then you add onto them or you remove from them? But what is accepted and what is not? For example, wudu. You do wudu. We know it is legislated that you wash 3 times. Let's say you wash 5 times out of wanting to get reward. Is your wudu accepted or not? Like these other actions we mentioned are not accepted in totality. Your wudu is accepted. It is accepted. Your wudu is fine. You did wudu. But because you did it 5 times, those other 2 times, you're not getting extra reward for it. You say, I'm going to wash more because I want more reward. Those are from innovations from your own self. So your wudu is correct, but it is lacking. Why? But the 2 that you added, your extra 2 times you washed, is lacking that part of ibadah. It is not part of ibadah. It is something which is an innovation. It's not accepted, those 2. Another example, for example, somebody says, I'm going to read salah at home. They read at home. This action here, it is legislated upon men that they read in the masjid. This action is not now, we don't say it's bid'ah. This is naqis, meaning your action is inferior to somebody's action which was done in the masjid. So there's a differentiation. Every single scenario in terms of these ones needs to be looked at on its own and judged on its own. Example of something which will be thrown out completely. We know that Salat al-Dhuhr is legislated, just like our wudu was legislated. We know that wudu is 3 times, sunnah. We know that Salat al-Dhuhr, every rak'ah, every single salah, you make ruku 1 time. For each rak'ah, you make ruku 1 time. You come and you make ruku 5 times. And you say the other 4 times because I love to pray and I want to do ruku more. That whole salah is batil because adding that is part of the salah. It is from the shurut of salah, from the wajibat of salah, from the sunan of salah. It is something in totality that is part of the salah. You can't separate. Wudu, once you've done 3 times, it's not like you're separating. You're doing the same action of washing. It's not the action of wudu that you are changing. Right? You're not saying I'm washing now. I used to wash my hands. Now I'm no more washing my hands. I'm going to wash my chest. You're not doing that. So please understand this. So salah, that old salah is batil. It must be repeated. It is not accepted. It should be repeated. And these are just some of the examples. Lastly, to end, there are certain actions which are also to do with tanzim. Tanzim means in terms of your order of things, your daily, day-to-day things. For example, Umar radiallahu anh, he found the people reading Taraweeh, all separate jama'ah. He gathered them onto one jama'ah and he said, you'll read behind one imam and he standardized 20 rak'ah. Some were reading 8, some were reading 36, some were reading many numbers. He standardized it so that there is in terms of what they call tanzim, arrangement of things. For example, another example, Uthman radiallahu anh, he gathered the Quran. He gathered the Quran so that he could arrange it, because in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam forbade them from writing the Quran so it doesn't mix with the Sunnah. We spoke about this in our introduction. Now that fear is gone, so he gathered it into book form. It's not a bid'ah. Also, in terms of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali radiallahu anhu, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Alaykum bi sunnati wa sunnati al-khulafa ar-rashidun." Take from my sunnah and the sunnah of my khulafa ar-rashidun. So even then, we don't even need to answer these questions because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered us to take from their sunnah and there is their sunnah. A more clear example would be, for example, people pay their zakat in Ramadan. There is a customary thing to do because why? They say Ramadan, the reward is more and the time of the year, and they give lots of reasons. Let's say you want to say, my financial year end is in February, I have lots of assets, lots of money, I have difficulty in calculating, I'm going to pay zakat in February. There's no problem with it. There's no problem with setting the time of the year. Why? It's not legislated that you need to pay in Ramadan. It's legislated that you need to pay when 1 year goes past. So you say, I'm paying at the time which is suitable to me, where I know my books are closed, I understand what I have, what I don't have, what's due to me, what's against me, and that's when you pay it. So these things also need to be separated from the mind to say everything is bid'ah. Somebody stands up in the masjid after salah one day and they give a small nasiha, a small advice. People say, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say that you can stand up after Dhuhr salah and do this. There is bid'ah. They're not doing it and saying that I am getting a reward and I'm doing it all the time. Please remember, those 3 rules must be there for something to become bid'ah. Those 3 rules must be there for something to become bid'ah. And for something to fall out of the Sharia originally, those 6 rules must be there. So there is what is understood by this hadith, and there is one of the hadith which are pivotal in our understanding. They determine and they are the scale on which we weigh our outward actions. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.